Alright, so I just wanted to talk some about the puyo scene and stuff like that. And first of all, I've been seeing a lot of people who seem to be getting pretty good. It seems like there's a lot more pretty good people out there nowadays, and even some people that um, it just seems like there might be people who come out of nowhere, but they're actually pretty good, and or even like really good. And it didn't feel like that a while ago. I'd say in the past it felt more like if you didn't know that someone was really good, then you could kind of assume that they probably weren't that good. But nowadays it kind of feels like if you unless you know the person's not that good, they might actually be pretty good. And even if you even if it's someone who in the past hasn't been that good, a lot of people are getting better pretty quickly, and I think that's really cool to see. And um, you have a lot more resources out there, and a lot more people trying to help other people get better. So I think that's pretty cool. Um, I still think I have the edge on most people, and I'm okay taking on challengers if people think they can beat me. But I still think I have the edge for at least for a while, but we'll see what happens. Um, I don't really compete to always win. I compete to compete and for the challenge. So it's cool to see people like try to get better and challenge me and stuff like that. So um, so I've actually been practicing a lot recently, and I feel like I'm still getting better and still learning a lot of things. And I definitely still have a lot of room to improve still, but I do feel like I'm getting even better than I was before, so that's nice. But I don't know what it is, but I have a lot of uh, I guess my play isn't that consistent, but I feel like even in general, like a lot of people have a lot of variability in their play. Like you can play really well one day and really poorly another day, and like you're still the same person, and it's not clear why. Like um, you don't really feel different. So I've had a lot of instances where I just play in a tournament and just play really poorly, and for some reason just like can't play at the level that I usually play at, and it just doesn't go very well at all. And that's pretty frustrating. But then sometimes I'll just play like amazing, like really, really good, and I'll just like see everything and like um, play really consistently and all of that. So it's kind of frustrating just because, like, when I practice a lot and then um, just all of a sudden have an off day and don't do well, then it's like, what was the point of practicing? So there's a recent tournament with I think it's called Rising Puyo, but um, there's a Switch and a PC bracket, and then in the Switch bracket, I had a really frustrating loss where it feels like I just should have been able to do a lot better, and I just for some reason couldn't do it, and it was like just an off match or whatever, and I just couldn't play my best. It felt like, and then that was also like after I had been doing some like serious practice, like a lot of practice, um, like many hours a day for like a couple weeks, and um, I had been like improving online. I'd been in general doing well, so felt like I should have just done so much better. And it feels like what was the point of practicing if I'm just gonna randomly have an off day and not be able to play well? So that was really frustrating, and you know it's easy to like if you don't have that mental strength to like keep going, it's easy to let that get you down and um, make you want to give up or whatever. But if you know anything about me, that's not how I am. So then I played the PC tournament the next day, and then um, I like randomly lost to this person that I didn't know, and their name was like uh, Mega Nep, and I didn't know that name. I don't know if they've done other things, but I like lost to them, and I was like, oh man, maybe I'm having another off day. But um, later on, I saw more of their play, and then it looked like, no, actually, that person is pretty good. Like they know what they're doing, so um, so it wasn't like a fluke or necessarily that I played that poorly, but um, so then I was in the losers bracket, and um, I had to play against Hiku, and I thought Hiku had a good chance to beat me because, like, I'd say our matchup is pretty even. Again, sometimes like I have an off day, sometimes I think Hiku has an off day, sometimes we both play well. I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, overall I'd say it's pretty even. So um, I was worried about that, but then I decided like when I was practicing, most of my practice was just regular matches where you build a base and then you like attack on top of the base, like in the mid game, and you like attack and counter off of your base. And then if the other person sends their main chain, then you extend. And most of my practice was just that. But in the past, I would do more aggressive play and sometimes kind of rely on it. So I wanted to make it so that I didn't have to feel like I had to rely on that to win. But so I practice mostly what I would call standard play, like the normal way you're in theory supposed to play in quotes. But that match, I was so like now that I was in the losers bracket, I seem to be kind of off. I was like, I think I need to change it up, and I'm gonna bring back the aggressive play again, and um, do that really heavily. So then I did a lot of like early attacks where you don't even build your base completely, you just attack really early in the round, and then that was working really well against Hiku, and then um, it was kind of working in some of the other matches I had to play after that, and then I had to play Void in losers finals, and that matchup is always hard for me. I'd say Void usually has the edge over me, but it feels like I'm getting better, so maybe it's more even now. But usually he would beat me, so uh, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to win that match either. And I wanted to play in general like a lot more balanced, where not just completely standard, but not just like completely aggressive either, just more balanced. And I feel like Void has a lot of practice against me when I play aggressive, so he's pretty good at countering it. So it's harder to get it to work. But um, so I tried to play like balance, like I said, and then I know I was down a lot early on, and then I came back, and the part I remember the most is that it was like 9-9, and then I won, and it got to 10-9, and I was like, all right, I think I can turn this around. I think I got this, because it was a first to 15, and it's like, I think I got this now, and I was like, all I have to do is like not let him get the lead again, and hopefully I can like maintain the lead all the way to 15. But then he like won a whole bunch in a row. I don't remember if you won them in a row necessarily, but I know I was losing. Like it might have been 10-13 or 11-13 or something. I was like, oh man. I was like, I wanted to hold the lead all the way through, but I couldn't do it. And then I remember it got to 13-13 because I was like, I don't want to let him get to match point first. But then I lost, and then he was on match point, and then I won the next one, so it was double match point, and then it was like, so I think I attacked, and I know he set off his main chain, and then it's like, this is the thing that I've been practicing the most. It's like, I feel like in the past, it's something that I've struggled with a lot, where their main chain is going off, and you have to extend, and you only have a limited time to do it, but you have to like extend some, or you're not gonna win. And it was like, this is, it was just the moment. It was like, well, this is why I've been practicing. This is like the moment to do it or not do it. It's like everything's riding on this one moment, and hopefully I can do it this time because this is what counts. And it was like a really tough form to extend. It wasn't like a clean form that's easy to extend off of, where the ideas for how to extend are pretty straightforward. It was like messy and like not even, and the tail was kind of complicated, and there wasn't good space on the front to work with, and somehow I figured out how to connect the tail, and then I drew like the 1/8 piece. That was the perfect piece to start the chain with. So, um, so I like to think in my own mind, even though I don't actually think it's true, but I feel like I get unlucky a lot in a lot of matches where the color just won't come that I need, and part of that is sometimes I just can't adjust well enough, but sometimes I feel like I really do just get unlucky a lot in a lot of situations, and just can put down like 5 pieces in a row and not get one of the color I need. So I feel like that happens a lot in matches. It happens a lot when I'm practicing against the computer. But that one day in that like in some of the previous matches and in that match too, I was like, for some reason, I just feel like I'm not gonna be unlucky today. and then there's like, I know there's one match where I had like 2 pieces, or I had like 2 or 3 pieces to draw the color I needed, and sometimes there's matches where you just lose all of those for some reason. But I was like, yeah, it feels like that's not gonna happen today, and I like just drew the color and I won the round, and then in that very last round, that was 14-14. Then I drew the 1/8 piece, and then it made it made a 9 chain, and the very last the very last link, I didn't know it was gonna connect like that, but I was like, oh man, it's a 9 chain, and then like uh, he set off a second chain. I was like, oh man, that second chain was really good, and I was like, this is this is such a crazy final match, but his second chain wasn't even enough, so then I won outright. But it was like such a crazy match, and I feel like I played really well, and I feel like he played really well. So it was like, um, it was a really good match, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you watch it because it's pretty cool. But then, and then in the grand finals, um, I got to play Mega Nep again, and I was able to win more easily that time. And I think the first time I played them, I just kind of thought, oh, they probably aren't going to be that good. So you just, sometimes you think like, well, I can just, if it's someone who's not that good, you can just kind of attack them, and they're not going to counter you. They might send their main chain, but then in theory, you can extend your chain and win. But then I like attack them, and then they would counter me. And it's like, oh man, this person, this person actually knows what they're doing, or like they're actually really good. And so that happened, and since I've been practicing a lot, I've been doing ranked a lot, and I've heard people complain about the system, and sometimes uh, I'll just feel like people are just complaining because they feel like they're not getting as many points as they should. They're not as high ranked as they think they should be. But in this case, I actually think there's there's a problem with the rank system. So I feel like um, it expects the higher player to win by to win more often than they're actually able to. So so if you're like playing a really long set against someone, if you can beat them by double score, like 50 to 25 and a first to 50, that usually means you're just kind of a lot better than the other person. So even though like they get a lot of wins, but um, it's like if you can win by that much, it kind of means you're a lot better than the other person. And even if you, it can be closer, like 50 to 40, but if you can win by 10, then you're probably like reasonably, like there's still a gap there. You're still better than them, but with how the rank system is, if you're playing someone who's like 200 or 300 points lower than you, um, with the amount that you win when you win versus how much you lose when you lose, it's like uh, you have to win so much more consistently than you're often able to. So even though you might be like a good amount better than your opponent, you're still going to lose a lot of rating points kind of randomly or just kind of with the variance just because sometimes they're going to be able to beat you and then you're going to like lose a whole bunch of points. So um, what that's going to cause is like it's going to cause a lot of big swings in rating and a lot of variability in like all the players' ratings. And so I think you see that a lot where people generally have like rate ranges, like they're like 2,800 to 3,000, and um, it makes it kind of complicated because like a 200 point difference is pretty significant. Where it's kind of like um, if you're 2,800, you're like good. You're like I'd say you're really good, but um, you need to get to around like 3,000 to be competitive for like best in the West, I would say, or like to be in that discussion. Like if you can hang around 3,000 pretty consistently, you're probably like at least in consideration for like best in the West, or you're like at a high level for people outside of Korea and Japan. So like that 200 points is a big deal. And if you're 3,000 versus like 3,200, so like 3,000 might be like at the top, around the top level for people outside of Korea and Japan. Probably if you get to 3,100, you can feel pretty comfortable that you're like at the top level outside of Korea and Japan. And then if you get to 3,200 stably, then you're probably competitive at the pro level. Like you can play against people who are pros and actually like hang with them and not get blown out. And you might not necessarily beat them, but you can probably like be in that conversation. You can be at that level. And if you get even higher than that, then you're probably a pro yourself. But so that 200 point swing is really big. So if you want to like take pride in your rating, you're like, man, I'm at 3,000. I'm I might be like getting close to best in the West. So that might be something you take pride in, but then you just like lose two games in a row and now you're at like 29-30 or whatever, 29-40, and doesn't look as good and you can't be as happy about it, and then you lose another game and you're down to 2900 and like all of a sudden you're like it doesn't look like you're the best in the West anymore or whatever. So um, it's a tough rating system to work with because it's easy to like get invested in your rating when it goes up. So you're like, wow, I'm like maybe in consideration for best in the West, or like maybe I can compete with these people, and then all of a sudden just regular variance happens and you like lose 200 rating points and you're down to 2800 and you're like, wasn't I like, man, I'm terrible. I like can't even compete with these people. It just looks so bad. So um, but I'd say with how the rating system is, like that's kind of natural to have swings of like 200 to 300 points, and it's probably best to evaluate yourself as like at the middle or like at the middle of your range, like figure out where your upper range tends to be. Like when you're having a really good day, sometimes you get up to whatever it is, maybe 3000. And then what your lower range tends to be, like when you're having a really bad day, maybe you fall all the way to 2700. And then maybe think of the middle of it as where you actually are, like 2850 or something like that. Because um, you definitely don't want to look at the one number and then and go off of that because it'll drive you crazy. It's it just doesn't account for the variability very well. And another way it varies is just like, so on some days you might, just like how your actual rate stable rating might be around 3000, but you might be having an off day, so you're down around 2900 or 2800. And then so if you might play against people like that, so like you're playing people who are at the bottom of their range, so they're actually higher than their rating shows. They're stronger than their rating shows, so they're probably going to beat you. But because their rating is currently very low, your rating is going to go down a lot more. So it's not. So it's like variability just because like there's already variability in the system. So like it makes it even worse because um, you could be playing someone who's anywhere on their range. Like, so if everyone you're playing against is at the bottom of their range, you're just going to go down, not due to anything you do, just because other people are like they had off days previously and now they're playing better or whatever it is. And and then the other thing can happen where like some people might have just had a couple lucky games or had a really good day and played against someone who was really high rated but was on an off day. So then some people might be overrated, and then you just like easily go up a lot, but not based on your own skill or anything, just because like other people were overrated. So it's a very like kind of frustrating system, and a lot of the changes in your own rank aren't necessarily by your own skill or by your own ability. And then something that something else that exists is that there's some kind of disconnect glitch where you can intentionally disconnect or even not intentionally disconnect, but you can disconnect and gain rating points. So um, sometimes like a lot of the people who get really high up really fast just abuse that, and they don't actually they don't actually like they aren't actually playing the game. They're just like disconnecting, and then the disc, but then they get the disconnect bonus as well. So like that's another way to like randomly get a whole bunch of points is if your opponent just disconnects on you, then you get a bigger bonus than if you just beat them usually. So that can inflate your rating. And then you can do the intentional disconnect glitching, and that can boost your rating even more. and then that'll again inflate everyone else's ratings. So then that'll like cause more variation in the system, cause more problems, and so I think the system does have its flaws, but um, it's not necessarily terrible. You just can't put too much you can't put too much stock into that single number, like your current rating number, and it really has to be like that range. Like if you want to think about it, then you have to look at your rating range rather than a single number. So just because I definitely feel it myself, where sometimes it's like, wow, I'm doing really good. I've got a really big number right now, and then so some days it'll feel really good, and then some days I'll just like not get the color I need for 5 pieces in a row, and like happen to lose a match that I should have been able to win, and then it'll happen again, or like I'll make a mistake that is my own fault, but then I'll lose again in a match that I could have won, and then there goes like all the progress that I made, and then it's like, wow, I'm doing so bad. I don't want my rating to look this bad, and so I should play again to try to get it back up, but then I lose again, and then it gets even worse, and then it just feels bad. But again, if that was something that like really bothered me, I probably wouldn't be doing the things I do today. But but I still feel it, and I understand like how other people would feel it, and maybe get even more affected by it than I do. So yeah, I definitely don't think you should put too much stock in the single number. But um, thinking about the range is worthwhile. And um, oh, and then the it does allow you to compete with um, people that are generally in your range. So in the past, I used to play in on Puyo versus where you had to ask people for matches. Um, but sometimes it's nice to just have ranked matches where you can just play random people and you don't have to ask people. And the people that you play against are usually like kind of in your skill level. So it's very good for that kind of practice. And I do think um, now that something like that is more widely available and a lot of people can just play it, I think that's going to help a lot of people get better and get stronger, and you're going to have a lot more of those up and comers like I was talking about at the start of this, where it just feels like nowadays there are a lot more people who are pretty good and maybe even really good, and even a lot more styles that people play with. Like in the past, everyone just used to make big chains, and that's kind of all. But like now, you can find people who you didn't know about who can make big chains, but they can also like attack in the mid game, and they can also like see that you're gonna attack and try to counter your attack, and it's like it just feels like people are getting really good. So that's cool to see. Um, and one last thing that I think is interesting is that so Puyo itself has so many different styles you can play. Um, so even at top pro levels, you can see different forms being used, different openings being used, and you can even have different. So you can have the forms you build. That's one way to vary. You can vary your play style, like you can be more aggressive or more defensive, or like you can focus on big chains, or you can focus on countering while making a big chain, or you can focus on like building quickly versus cleanly. There's like a whole bunch of different things you can focus on and styles you can play. And I think that's really cool. And for myself, I really want to play like a tricky style and aggressive style where um, I try to like read what the opponent does and what kind of messes them up the most, and then play that style. Like some people don't counter the aggressive early attacks very well at all, so you can just like do it and then get a pretty big advantage against those people. And then other people are like really good at countering that, so you have to like play a different style against them, or they're just gonna be able to counter it. But you can really like mix it up, so that's why I want to try and do, and try to like get in people's heads and like try and figure out what if I can like outplay them just with styles that I play with. And in order to actually be really good, even if you have a good style, you still have to be able to like um, chain efficiently and quickly. And no matter what style you use, you have to be able to do that. So when I practice, I like try to improve my chaining, but I have fun trying to play different styles and like different approaches and just see what works against different people, things like that. So if you see me play in um, any tournament matches, you might see me do different things in different matches, or like even in different rounds in the same match, just because I like trying to like read what other people are gonna do and how I can just counter that with the style that I want to play. And there is a Vortex Gallery tournament coming up soon. That should be pretty exciting. It's essentially Anime Evo, but renamed, rebranded, and it's going to be online this time. But um, it should still be a good tournament. I'm going to be in that, so um, I'd say check it out if you want. Um, I'm going to try and win it. I saw Ackliff signed up. He's going to be tough to beat, but um, I did play him in ranked recently, and I was actually beating him. And it was felt like I was outplaying him in the rounds I was winning, and not just getting lucky. But he might have not been at his best in those matches, and I might have been playing really well. And overall, I still think he has the edge over me. But I have a lot of practice going into this, so I should be pretty hot, and I might be able to get a little bit better. So I should be able to compete. Um, then I don't know if any of the like Japanese pros are gonna play, but if they do, that would make things harder. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching.